Right in the middle, where I realized they were ignoring me by accident. They were actually ignoring me on purpose and it made me upset. And what I did next, it changed everything. But hold that thought for a minute. We'll get to that. But let's talk about why this hurt so much. There's a certain type of pain that comes from feeling invisible. It's not just frustrating, it's deep. It's like a gut punch kind of pain. And science backs it all up. Studies show that feeling ignored lights up the same part of your brain as physical pain. That is deep. That's why the pain seems to linger. That's why it replays in your head at night. That's why some of y'all still remember the first time somebody made you feel like your voice didn't matter. That's all facts, friends. All facts. But what if I told you that pain, that silence, it's not always an accident. Some people ignore you on purpose. And when I say they ignore you on purpose, some of them actually feel delighted when they do so. And the reason? It's even worse than you think. See, there's a dark truth behind it. Some people choose not to hear you. You ever notice how some people only didn't hear you when what you said required them to change? Does that sound familiar? Oh, yeah, I bet it sounds familiar. But let's get to the hard truth of the matter here. That some people hear you absolutely fine. They hear you just fine. They just don't want to respond. Because if they acknowledge your words, they have to face them. That means they have to be accountable. And accountability, that's a language that some folks just refuse to learn. Let me give you an example. See, your boss hears your request for that raise. But you know what? Your boss acts like they missed the email. Your partner hears you say what you need, but then suddenly they develop selective hearing. Your so called friend hears your boundaries, but still forgets and crosses them. Does that sound familiar? Anyone? Sound familiar? But here's where it gets messy sometimes. See, the person ignoring you is you. Does that sound familiar? See, the moment you realize you've been muted by yourself is an awakening. So let's flip this real quick because, yeah, it hurts when other people ignore us. But when was the last time you actually listened to yourself? When was the last time? How many times have you shrunk your voice because you assumed that nobody would listen? You're not alone if you have. How many times have you stayed silent when you should have spoken? Especially when you should have spoken up about something. How many times have you stayed silent? How many times have you ignored your own intuition because it wasn't convenient at that point in time? Because the truth is, people can't value a voice you refuse to use. Oh, I know this is hitting hard. So the real question isn't just why won't they listen? It's, are you willing to be heard, friend? Are you willing to be heard? So, what do you do when you're tired of being ignored? I'm going to break it down on how to be heard, seen, and respected. Because here's what works: no sugarcoating, straight with no chaser. We just have to talk about the facts. First, speak with certainty, even if your voice is shaky. People listen to conviction. Even if you don't feel confident, you have to own your words. Instead of saying, I think I should be paid more, don't say that. Say, based on my contributions to ABC, my pay should reflect my value. Two, stop explaining yourself to people who refuse to understand. I talk about this all the time. You do not have to keep repeating yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your energy, oh, your energy is expensive. So stop wasting it on people who pretend they don't hear you, but somehow always hear gossip and drama just fine. And that brings me back to the moment that I promised you earlier, when I realized someone was ignoring me on purpose and how I flipped the situation completely. See, what I realized is that people ignore you on purpose. They ignore you on purpose. And when I realized it, that they were ignoring me, I started saying all types of things, even if they were not, I should say, factual. And then when I started talking about the nonsense, then they started hearing me. So at the end of the day, you have the power of owning your voice. You don't need permission to be heard. You don't need validation to be seen, because the moment you believe your voice matters, everything changes. Now, drop in the comments if any of this hit home for you. Name one thing that you've been holding back from saying, and say it now in the comments. Until next time, keep on sipping and let that tea brew into action.